Good morning. I'm Ed James, and this is Black Almanac. If President Trump was hoping his foreign trip would shift the conversation away from scandals, he may be out of luck. Over the last week, support for beginning impeachment proceeding among voters rose from 38% to 43%. Of those who want Congress to move toward impeachment, a 54% majority of those believe Trump has proven he is unfit to serve and should be removed from office, regardless of whether he committed an impeachable offense or not. Only 43% of those seeking impeachment believe Trump has committed an offense that meets the high constitutional standards for removal. Sharing his insight and analysis, political analyst Dr. Lawrence A. Miller. Dr. Miller, I don't know where we are. I have no idea.
Yeah.
And since the president came back, from the G7 meeting,
Right.
he has been the mystery president. When they went there, some of his aides were talking with the other representatives and saying, well, he's going to do the right thing on climate change and the Paris Accord, and it's going to be okay. And then others were saying, well, I'm not sure. And they really weren't sure.
Right.
Because I'm not sure he was sure.
Exactly.
But this past Thursday, he finally made a decision. Before you tell us about that decision, let's talk about what it means to have it and what it means for the U.S. just to walk away.
Well, and again, thank you for having me on your program. But on that particular issue, the United States showed leadership by going ahead and being a part of a global initiative to deal with climate change. Players who had never been involved before, like China, India, and other countries, came together to talk about what actions they can take together to address climate change in their countries and across the globe. Here it is, the United States was showing leadership out front in terms of going ahead and tackling this issue. And what it means is to have, even though these are non-binding goals for each one of these different countries, it does show that they're all moving in the right direction.
Absolutely.
And the thing here is that when you have a situation like that, the wealthiest, the most powerful nation on earth should be at the table.
And all along, as we knew people were lining up, the original folk continued to stay strong.
Yes.
The only persons, this is interesting, who talked about leaving were the dictators, Nicaragua and Syria. And we could join them.
We could actually join them.
It could be the unholy three.
It's mind-boggling. It's mind-boggling. How do you do that? I mean, how do you align yourself with Syria? Okay? How do you do that? I mean, Nicaragua is, as a matter of fact, they're building a canal with the help of the Chinese to rival the Panama Canal. Are they turning away from the United States? These are the kind of things that, in terms of going ahead and being a leader globally, requires the United States to be at the forefront.
In Miami-Dade County, they're already seeing signs of with warming, the water rising.
Exactly, the sea
level rising. And they've started developing plans. What do we do? How do we do? Because it's not will it rise, it's when it will be.
Whenever it rise.
Start washing. Well, what do you think about his decision?
I think his decision is wrong-headed. in terms of even how it started out as far as his perspective is concerned. We've talked on this program numerous times about coal, and part of his promise to the coal industry handcuffed him when it came to dealing with the Paris Accords. And so to go ahead and turn away from it is a disaster, because when you start talking about jobs, there are more jobs now in wind than there are in coal. There are more jobs in going ahead and use alternative fuels than there are with coal. So if we're going to be part of the leadership of this planet, then we need to be at the table when you start talking about climate change.
And we produce more natural gas than anyone.
Exactly.
Let's talk about former FBI Director Comey.
Yes.
They said that he's on the runway
Yes.
and ready to
Come in for a landing.
come in for a landing.
Yes.
And next Thursday,
Exactly.
next week, he will be going before the Senate Intelligence Committee.
Right. Been a lot of pushback from the Republicans about his coming forward and testifying. They allude to a statement that he gave earlier revolving around that there wasn't any interference from the White House. When that particular statement was made, did these other statements that he's talking about now already happen? Were they issues that he just swept under the rug? These are the type of things that people want to know coming from out of his mouth as to what transpired. Because all along, all we've heard is from the White House that he's a nut job, he's crazy, he's a grandstander, a showboat, all these negative things about a man that everybody says before all this happened that he was a good person who believed in justice, who believed in the rule of law, and that nothing would deter him from being able to go ahead and address those issues and not get political. Now he's being thrust into this political atmosphere because of all the different things that have been said about him so that he can save his good name.
Some of the GOP, and most of all, that's who it is.
Yes.
The senators are saying it may, having him testify openly, may somehow impede the real investigation.
Yes.
That
From Mueller?
yeah, from the special counsel, Mueller. Mueller has given his blessings
Exactly.
to him going ahead.
Yes, and that's a good thing, because you don't want there to be statements made, loggerheads. I mean, situations where you say one thing here and then another thing there, and give people also insight into what's coming. So that's good that they spoke about it, so he knows the parameters. You know, not to tell him what to say, but the parameters of what he can, disclose in a public forum. So here it is. We're going to have this, and there's so many committees that are meeting. You have a House committee, you have a Senate committee, you have a couple of Senate committees and a couple of House committees. And it's really crazy that you have all these committees instead of having a joint committee, a select joint committee, a commission that will go ahead and handle this so that you get one story, not a bunch of stories told here and there and highlights and what have you. So we'll see what happens.
I think, as we discussed several times, the reason why a special counsel was so important.
Yes.
Because everybody is running around with different agendas.
Exactly.
And speaking of different agendas, Attorney General Sessions, former
Senator
have been
Senator from Alabama.
in that campaign,
Senator
and I
from
did
Alabama,
not have
20
communications
years.
with the Russians.
Former
And I'm on.
prosecutor,
Yes.
former everything about law enforcement.
Exactly.
but he just can't remember things now.
Yes, yes.
And during the hearing, when he came for confirmation, he told the stories. He was asked questions and he gave answers.
Yes.
And he said he had never, ever met with the Russian ambassador to the United States. Lo and behold, a couple of days after those hearings were complete, the Washington Post comes with a story and talked about on 2 different occasions he had meeting. And now he was in trouble. What do I do?
Exactly.
So he takes, now, if you remembered suddenly what you hadn't remembered before, you would say, let me come back before the commission, and because I remember it different now, but you were under oath.
Right.
And is it called perjury?
Exactly. You know, the thing here is not only did he, in terms of making statements, okay, to Congress revolving around that, but he also had to fill out a form. He had to write down the different meetings that he had with any foreign entities, and he didn't do it. He didn't put down anything that had to do with meeting with the Russian ambassador.
Okay.
And the thing here is, now you're going to come back. You said he never did come back to clear the record on this issue.
Because he was afraid.
Because he was afraid. Here it is again. We come to find out there's an issue as to whether he met in the Mayflower Hotel again with Russian agents. So
After those first 2 that he didn't
after
remember.
the first 2 that he didn't remember.
So if he could remember those first 2 after the Washington Post reminded him, surely he should remember this 3rd occasion that CNN and USA Today reminded him of.
Yes. And the thing here is that he had the opportunity to write this, to do it again. After the first time they caught him, he had the opportunity to do it again. Now you're telling me after that, you still didn't put down all the different meetings that you had? That seems to me to be a concerted effort to hide and disguise your meetings with these different individuals.
And if he, no, let me go this way. Since President Trump decided that he should let his general go,
Michael
Flynn, for not remembering or not putting on paper his meeting with the same Russian ambassador.
Exactly.
And not telling that to the Vice President Pence. Why is Sessions still there?
Exactly. Why does he support this kind of behavior in his people? And he changed the ethics standards within for his top senior staff. He just signed an order revolving around, executive order revolving around that very issue, which is troubling, at least to me. And when you start talking about, because really what you're pointing up is hypocrisy. That's really what it is.
Oh, yeah.
So there was an issue, Kathy Griffin did something despicable, right?
Yes.
But here it is, he invited Ted Nugent to the White House, who said all kind of nasty things about President Obama.
Yes.
So, you know, if you're going to have standards as far as taste and decorum is concerned, it should be consistent, especially if you're president of the United States, because you have to have credibility when the nation needs you to step forward and start talking about, like the situation that happened in Oregon, in Portland, okay? If you're against these kinds of things, people need to know the sincerity of how you feel about that.
Where you had, in this case, you had another far-right nutcase stabbed three people,
Three people, exactly.
who tried to step in to save two young girls.
Exactly.
One was African American, and the other was Muslim. And he was telling them about go back to where you came from and all that.
Yeah, all those kind of crazy things. Now, you would hope that the president would step forward, which he eventually did days later, okay, and have something to say that was strong revolving around that issue. But if you lack credibility, if people think you're being no more than a hypocrite, or you're just saying things to go ahead and placate a certain segment of the society, and you're not sincerely against and forthright and strong about these different things, people are not going to pay attention to what you have to say on these particular issues when they really need to hear from the President of the United States speak strongly about, especially racial issues, because so many things have happened in the United States here lately. The incident that you're talking about here, the one that was in New York where another person was stabbed, the Bowie State student who got killed, also stabbed by a far-right individual. The person who had the bully pulpit.
And even more recently, pardon me for cutting you off, LeBron James.
LeBron James, exactly.
At one of his homes.
Exactly. You know, so the thing here is that we need someone who has credibility. When people can see that you have a double standard when it comes to what Kathy Griffith may say and what a Ted Nugent might say, then people start to lose credibility as far as what you have to say in general.
Cinnamon.
Yes.
Where are you going to run to? Or cinnamon. Where are you going to run to?
Yeah.
As I think about the president's son-in-law,
Jared Kushner.
the president, Donald Trump,
Yes.
the banker, the Russian banker, who's head of a bank that is on our watch list, the United States of America. Kushner did not remember his meetings. It's something about
something in the air. Something in the air around them. They lose their memories.
Yeah, he had met with this banker who is a part of the Putin banking chain. There's no other way to put it but that all the oligarchs and their banks are part of the Putin chain. He's in charge of all those banks. Now, the same bank where in New York, just recently, a Russian got out of prison for spying under the cover of being a bank employee. Now, so 3 different people, the president, the banker, and his son-in-law. You'd think there'd be at least 2 stories similar.
Two of them get it straight, right?
The president and his son-in-law.
Right.
Or the banker and Jared.
Yes.
But when they asked Jared to remember this, why were you meeting with him? He said about what? His real estate business?
The real estate business, yes.
And what did the banker say?
The banker said about meeting about the bank and finances. And then the president gets in there and starts saying it was about the government and the transition and going ahead and moving. There was so much conflicting stories revolving around it. It just added to the cloud revolving around this, or hovering over, I should say, this White House. And not only that particular situation, but the back channel that he was supposed to be setting up, right, with the Russians in the Russian embassy.
India.
I mean, you can't make this stuff up. I mean, it's like...
And then he also wanted to have a back channel to the bank.
Yeah.
Now, but it's okay.
Yeah,
Because,
I guess.
well,
All the stuff has got to come out. These are the kind of things that the special prosecutor, I believe, and the Congress and everybody else needs to be looking into to make sure that this government, this administration that we have today is not beholden to the Russians, okay? And you think about that. A Republican, now you and I are old enough to remember Nixon, Reagan, all these other different Republicans who are dead set against Russians and Russia. And here we are with this kind of mess going on in the United States today.
Well, more recently, this past week, the President Trump thinks that it's time for America to give back the Russian compounds. One in Washington, one
In New York.
Yeah. And one in Maryland, and one in New York. Yes. Now, would you think, with everything that's going on with Russia, where everybody agrees they fiddled with the American election,
Exactly.
and President Obama, when it became solid, he took their compounds, and now Trump wants to give them back. Why do you give them back?
Right.
Well, they say it may be a good idea to give them back because we want to build a new embassy in St. Petersburg, and that's not Florida, folks. That's Russia. Why do we need a new embassy in St. Petersburg, Russia?
Yeah, it's first get this situation settled as far as the Russian meddling in our election, right? And every law enforcement, every intelligence agency has said that they did. Why not go ahead? Let the Congress do its business. Let the special prosecutor do his business, and then make these concessions if it's warranted. If it's not warranted, right, not only put those sanctions on them, because it wasn't just those consulates, but it was against individual Russian, like the bank that we've been talking about,
Sure.
Sanctions against those individuals who, as far as those banks are concerned, go even further. Because we can't have in 2018 a foreign entity meddling in our elections, nor in 2020. We need to have free and fair elections, period, so that people will again see the United States as a leader, especially a democratic leader. Coming out of this G7 meeting where Trump, and NATO meeting where Trump talked about as far as the coming to the aid of different nations in Europe, and Angela Merkel, the Prime Minister of Germany, now says we have, because of the statements made by Trump, that we have to go it alone, we have to handle our business. That really has an impact upon American leadership across the globe.
But since Mr. Trump really doesn't know American or world history, maybe he does not know that after the war, we didn't want Germany to build another standing army and increase.
Exactly.
Just like after Pearl Harbor, and that was over, we didn't want the Japanese to do. So you tell people, hey, we're unified. We'll be there for you. You don't need this.
Right.
And then you get and try to embarrass them in front of each other.
Exactly. Push people out of the way and then pull your coat together like you're,
You're
God's,
special.
yeah, you're special. You're God's gift to this earth. So here it is. We have the situation where our standing in the world is being challenged. And then you think about what we've been talking about as far as the global climate change challenges that the world has to deal with. We need to look towards the fact that we need American leadership in every aspect of globalization as it stands today, not just for today, but years into the future. And nothing should stand in the way of that.
Well, the White House needs a new communications director. After 3 months, the communications director said he had personal business.
Personal business.
And he left.
Right.
And there are many offices that they can't get anyone, they can't fill, because the folk who president is offering the jobs don't want them.
Exactly. Like Joe Lieberman, right, was supposed to be taking over the FBI.
Yeah.
He ran out of there.
You know, in this last couple of minutes, I got to say this. I know there are many people out there who watch this show, also watch House of Cards on Netflix.
Yes.
President Underwood, Kevin Spacey. Well, and they do some weird things on House of Cards. And by the way, if you missed it, they started the 5th season this past Wednesday. But there's nothing that they could do on House of Cards to rival what we do in reality with this president.
Yes.
So is that art imitating reality? Is that reality
Things are turned on its head, right?
Imitating art?
Yes.
It's hard to know.
Exactly. And you know, this is serious business. I know we say different things and we smile and may even make a joke about different things, but this is serious business because people's lives are on the line. We send people out to different countries for democracy. And here it is, we, as far as all the issues and problems that we have, don't know whether our own government, our own administration is ours or being manipulated by a foreign power.
That we are happy to be a part of. That is the question. We talk about Putin and the Russians. Well, Putin and the Russians have always been Putin and the Russians. But we've always had presidents in the past who were for America first.
Exactly.
And they need to understand that. Forget a tired slogan. To be for America first
There you go.
means to protect America.
No
All
question.
I got to say, with this investigation, Cinnamon, where are you going to run to?
Oh, Cinnamon, where you gonna run to? Cinnamon, where you gonna run to? Where you gonna run to? All on that day, will I run to the rock? Please.
This is an important medical announcement. Bard IVC filters have been linked to punctured veins and problems with migration. Anyone who's received a Bard IVC filter must receive medical monitoring and may be entitled to substantial compensation. If you have the Bard Recovery G2 or G2 Express filter, you are in a class of patients who should be compensated for some expenses. Call now for a free assessment of your case and potential money damages. This call is confidential. There's no cost and you may be eligible. Juries have awarded millions of dollars to people who should have been warned about the risks of the Bard IVC filters. Call the IVC Filter Hotline if you or a loved one has received an IVC filter and experienced a vein puncture or required medical monitoring. You must call now.
Call 800-329-3089. 800-329-3089.
The official Suncoast Storm team at ABC7. We're here for you.